Michael Jordan is known for three things: dunks that defied gravity, shoes that rewrote sneaker history, and grudges that aged like fine wine.
Michael, get it pulled with a fresh shot clock. MJ. Oh, he did it! Michael shakes the finger!
MJ could take any slight, big or small, and turn it into championship fuel. A coach leaving him off a high school roster? Dynasty. A reporter saying he's good, but motivation. A rival daring to think they were his equal? Personal.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move by Jordan! It counts! And the foul!
That brings us here. Top 7 players Michael Jordan literally hated. This isn't just a countdown. It's a study in competitiveness at its sharpest edge. These players weren't just opponents. They were milestones in the Jordan mythology. Each one either pushed him to new heights, irritated him beyond reason, or got scorched just to prove a point. Jordan's career is often remembered for the highlight reels, the shrug, the flu game, the shot over Russell. But his legacy wasn't just built on iconic moments. It was built on battles. These rivalries shaped the way he played, prepared, and even thought about the game. And if you want to understand why Jordan's name sits alone in basketball conversations, you have to understand the enemies who sharpened him. The axis of bad blood. Jordan didn't just have rivals. He had a mental bulletin board of grudges. The formula was simple: elite talent, public pride, and playoff pain. A single hard foul could earn you a spot. A bold quote could do it. A handshake you didn't give? That sealed your fate. The late 80s were the crucible for MJ. The Bulls were talented but inexperienced, and Detroit was the gatekeeper. The Bad Boys made basketball brutal, and Jordan learned quickly that talent alone wasn't enough. This was where his obsession with winning started to harden. Let's begin with the rivalry that defined his evolution. The general of the Jordan rules, Isiah Thomas. Picture this: May 27, 1991. The Bulls are seconds away from sweeping Detroit. Isiah Thomas leads his Pistons teammates off the court with 7.9 seconds left. No handshakes, no congratulations. That image became iconic. For Jordan, it wasn't just disrespect, it was war. This feud was years in the making. Detroit's Pistons knocked Chicago out of the playoffs 3 straight times: 1988, 4-1, 1989, 4-2, and 1990, 4-3. Thomas was the brain behind the infamous Jordan rules, a defensive plan designed to exhaust him. They doubled him on the baseline, hammered him in the paint, and forced him to take punishment every possession. Jordan's numbers stayed elite, but Detroit had the rings. They won back-to-back titles in 1989 and 1990, making them the league's most feared squad. That all changed in 1991. Chicago swept Detroit 4-0, but instead of mutual respect, Thomas and his teammates walked off. Then came the Dream Team controversy. Publicly, USA Basketball said Isiah didn't fit with the roster. Privately, numerous sources confirmed Jordan's veto. MJ told NBA exec Rod Thorne he wouldn't play if Thomas was on the team. Thomas was a Finals MVP and one of the best guards ever, but he stayed home. Even after multiple apologies, Jordan never softened. For him, respect wasn't earned by stats. It was earned by how you acted in defeat. The enforcer with an elbow, Bill Laimbeer. If Isiah was the general, Bill Laimbeer was the sledgehammer. He wasn't there to play finesse basketball. He was there to knock you off your rhythm. Screens were collisions, box outs were wrestling matches. If you tried to dunk, Laimbeer was there to introduce you to the floor. Jordan later said, "They made it personal. They physically beat the out of us." Laimbeer embraced that identity. He led the league in flagrant fouls and technicals, played with zero remorse, and made the Bad Boys brand legendary. Detroit's strategy worked. They won titles in 1989 and 1990 and became Chicago's nightmare. Even after Chicago's sweep in 1991, the rivalry didn't cool off. Laimbeer was reportedly behind the infamous no handshake decision. Jordan's reaction? Pure disgust. To him, Laimbeer wasn't just a rival. He was a symbol of everything that stood in Chicago's way. Laimbeer averaged 12.9 points and 9.7 rebounds for his career, but his legacy isn't in stats. It's in bruises, scuffles, and highlight reels of MJ being shoved mid-air. Jordan's hatred of Detroit basketball culture was cemented because of guys like Laimbeer, and decades later, neither man has apologized. The trash talk assassin, Larry Bird. Larry Bird wasn't a bruiser like Laimbeer. He didn't have to be. His superpower was mental warfare. He'd tell defenders exactly where he'd shoot from, then hit it. Jordan was on the receiving end early. April 20th, 1986, Boston Garden. Game 2 of the first round. Jordan drops a playoff record 63 points on the Celtics. Bird's reaction became legend. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan. Compliment? Sure. But Boston swept the Bulls 3-0. Bird didn't just admire Jordan, he reminded him that individual greatness doesn't guarantee wins. The Celtics knocked out Chicago again in 1987. Bird, McHale, and Parrish taught Jordan that team basketball mattered more than heroics. MJ took that lesson seriously. The triangle offense, Phil Jackson's system, and Chicago's eventual dominance all stem from these early beatdowns. Even years later, footage shows MJ teasing Bird about his golf game. Playful, yes, but every joke carried weight.
All right, take care. Thank you. Work on that golf game of yours.
Bird controlled those early years, and Jordan never forgot. The mosquito with a flamethrower, Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller specialized in getting under your skin. He was a pest who backed it up with clutch shots. The 1998 Eastern Conference Finals proved that. Game 4, Indiana. Miller shoves Jordan, hits a 3 with 0.7 seconds left, and ties the series. The Pacers took the Bulls to 7 games, the only team to push Chicago that far in their second three-peat. Miller's cardio was unmatched. He ran defenders through an obstacle course of screens and thrived on chaos. Chicago won Game 7, 88-83, but it was a war. MJ later admitted Indiana was one of his toughest opponents outside Detroit.
Indiana was probably the toughest outside of Detroit.
The feud started even earlier. As a rookie, Miller trash-talked Jordan. MJ responded by torching him and saying, "Don't ever talk trash to Black Jesus." Miller laughed about it for years, but kept poking the bear. That persistence alone earned him a spot on this list. The Glove, Gary Payton. The 1996 Finals looked like another easy Chicago win. They went up 3-0. Then Seattle coach George Karl finally put Gary Payton, the Defensive Player of the Year, on MJ. Jordan's scoring dipped, 23, 26, 22 in the next 3 games, and Seattle stole 2 wins. MJ's shooting fell to 41.5% for the series, his lowest finals mark. He still won Finals MVP, but Payton made him work for every bucket. Payton's strategy was relentless. Body MJ on every cut, press full court, and talk non-stop. The Glove's mouth was as dangerous as his hands. Jordan famously laughed off Payton's claims in The Last Dance, but the tape doesn't lie. Payton slowed him down, and MJ didn't forget. The comparison he crushed, Clyde Drexler. Clyde Drexler didn't start this rivalry, the media did. The hype before the 1992 Finals was all about Drexler being the Jordan of the West. MJ's response? Game 1, 6 threes in the first half, 35 points by halftime, and the shrug. Jordan averaged 35.8 points on 52.6% shooting in the series. Drexler was great, 24.8 PPG, but the debate was over before it started. That shrug wasn't celebration, it was dismissal. Jordan respected Drexler's game but hated the comparison. This was personal brand protection. MJ didn't just want to win, he wanted to make sure nobody else looked close. The GM's favorite, Dan Maherly. Sometimes MJ's grudges weren't about rivals, they were about his own front office. Bulls GM Jerry Krause openly admired Dan Maherly's defense. MJ heard that and took it personally. 1993 Finals. Barkley was the MVP, but Maherly drew the MJ assignment. Jordan dropped 41.0 PPG over 6 games, including 55 in Game 4. He also set up Paxson's Game 6 winner. Maherly was a strong defender, but MJ turned him into an example. It wasn't about Dan, it was about sending a message to Krause. In Jordan's mind, every compliment for someone else was motivation. Why these stories matter. This list isn't gossip, it's history. Jordan's grudges explain his obsession. The Pistons' punishment pushed him to add muscle and master the mid-post. Bird's Celtics taught him patience. Miller's chaos improved his conditioning. Payton's defense inspired his fadeaway. Even Krause's comments fueled legendary finals performances. Every slight became fuel. Every rival became a stepping stone. These rivalries weren't distractions. They were essential to MJ's greatness. The psychology of the chip. Jordan's chip never left his shoulder. If you disrespected him, or even seemed to, he made sure you regretted it. Think about it. If Detroit shook hands in '91, does MJ take his foot off the gas? If Drexler comparisons never happen, does Game 1 of the Finals become iconic? If Krause keeps quiet, does Marley avoid being a target? We'll never know. What we do know is Jordan turned every poke into firepower. Respect beneath the rivalries. Here's the twist. Jordan's hatred was built on respect. Thomas's leadership sharpened him. Laimbeer's fouls toughened him. Bird's mind games made him smarter. Reggie's stamina pushed him to prepare harder. Payton's defense forced him to adapt. These grudges weren't just emotional, they were educational. That's what made MJ different. He didn't just beat his rivals, he studied them, absorbed their strengths, and came back stronger. Closing huddle. So, who did Michael Jordan hate the most? Depends how you define hate. Was it Laimbeer's elbows, Isiah's walk-off, Reggie's chaos, Payton's pressure, or Drexler's comparison? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you've ever turned a petty slight into motivation, you already speak Jordan's language.